need some research.
It smokes, it drinks, it philosophizes.
Just let me suck, please. Just a little suck on each one.
My mouth's bleeding, Bert! My mouth's bleeding!
Shall we talk now or wait?
WNBC.
I am ZARDOZ.
Oh my god. Damn.
The gun is good. The penis is evil.
Yeah, just ask fucking Maria Schneider. She'll tell you about how evil the penis is.
Right? That's the theme of this episode. The penis is evil.
Right? Speaking of which, this episode
What do you want to start with?
Hard Out Cinephiliacs double feature. ZARDOZ and Last Tango in Paris. A fucking 70s face-off. God damn, they don't make them like they used to.
Man, the early 70s were rapey, dude.
They were super rapey.
If these two movies are to be taken as an example, shit.
You were probably conceived by rape. We got to ask mom on that one.
No doubt.
Butch seemed kind of rapey.
Statutory, at least.
Yeah, shit.
What's that?
True.
Yeah.
By today's standards,
yeah,
for sure, rape.
That's actually technically true.
God damn. I mean, most of human history is
different than I'm not
rapey
sure.
as fuck.
Yeah.
I guess the other way to say it was these days aren't as rapey.
Right. And these films, I guess, really tap into humanity too, if that's the case. You know, they're demonstrative of.
No, we're probably going to say some shit in this episode that some people will fucking take exception to because it's all about just exploring these things honestly. You know what I mean? And from the perspective of the characters as well, because there's two things. There's the actors and there's the characters.
Right. That's what art and film and all that's all about, is exploring characters that aren't yourself and don't think like you do. And you might object to sometimes, you know, to provoke, to explore things that are, you know, not normalcy necessarily, you know.
That's one thing the 70s nailed, and the late 60s. Just
they don't make
push back against normalcies and normative behavior and shit. That everything has to be acceptable behavior and shit nowadays.
I mean, The Last Tango in Paris is probably the more meaty one when it comes to that, and in its time, it was, you know, rejected by many, and you know,
I got some facts on it that are nuts.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, I know it was rated X and stuff, and people were trying to ban it everywhere and stuff. But you want to just dig into that first?
Maybe there might be more to say about it, but yeah, maybe.
Which actually, that might be an argument to do it first, because you make sure you can.
All right, well, that was your pick, right? So I'll describe it, unless you want to say why you picked it first.
No, go ahead and describe it first. I'll explain.
All right, it's a famous fucking movie if you haven't heard of it.
It's not that profound.
Marlon Brando plays an aging hotelier in Paris, an American who married this French woman who had money in a hotel, but she has committed suicide before the film even starts. And he goes to rent a flat. And at the same time, this 20-year-old French woman, played by Maria Schneider, is renting the flat, or there to see the flat, to see about renting it. And they begin this just nutty, this affair, basically just a sexual affair in this flat, where he sets these ground rules where they never know each other's names and they're not allowed to talk about the outside world. It's basically a refuge from the outside world where they just explore carnal craziness. And it kind of comes to a head at the end. I mean, we can get into all that, but that would be like the log line of it.
Mm-hmm. And I picked it for the obvious reason, the controversy surrounding it. I had never seen it. It was a big hole in my history of movie watching. And, you know, it seems as relevant as ever, you know, with the controversy over, the Me Too movement, the butter scene specifically, I had heard much about. And more to see more Brando, you know.
And he was fucking awesome.
He was awesome.
Dude's a force of fucking nature, dude.
And this was right off of Godfather, which a lot of people must have been like, whoa, you know, like it was compared to Don Corleone, you know, like.
Right. I wonder if this is the movie, because he had disappeared for a few years before Apocalypse Now, and then he showed up all fat and shit. Yeah. And Coppola was like, what? I wonder if it was coming off of this, because he was not fat at all in this shit. He did a fucking like weird backflip when he got up one time.
Totally. He was acrobatic as fuck. I know.
Right.
Pretty impressive.
Brando was a fucking badass. God damn. The hype is real.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to our friends at the Shameless Picture Show, but this is one of those, like you said, a gap where like it's you're shameless. Like, how have I not seen this fucking movie? You know.
Mm-hmm.
So now we've both seen it.
Yeah, those on while we're on the subject of Brando's acting, the scenes that involved mourning for his wife and stuff, like that one where he was at the side of her body, that was fucking an all-timer.
All-timer. I don't know how much of that was improvised, but apparently that's one of the facts about this film. He apparently has dyslexia and he's terrible at memorizing his lines, and he improvised a shitload of his dialogue in this movie. And the dialogue he didn't improvise, Maria Schneider said they would tape his fucking lines to her naked body and shit so he could say them in the couple scenes. But some of the shit he improvised is amazing. I mean, that stuff at the bedside, it's great. He basically just berates his wife in this scene. He breaks down and just fucking destroys her, basically. All his pain that he's felt for not only her suicide, but the lies she had told in life and shit. It just all comes pouring out, and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it starts with him just berating her, and then he breaks down. So it's just this range.
It's a roller coaster,
yeah. It's fucking awesome.
From venomous to just all the pain. It's fucking great, dude.
The shit with that was the mother-in-law, right? That was his wife's mom that he was dealing with, and like when he bit her hand randomly and shit.
Bits.
Yeah,
I wonder if he improvised that, or if Bertolucci's a fucking freak too. He could have.
Yeah.
Very easily.
It sounds like they sat around and had, like the butter scene infamously, they actually had sat around and discussed, or not necessarily discussed at length, but it was them, the two of them at a table when it was conceived, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So it sounds like they did a lot of that, like sort of co-conspiring.
It was so weird. Bertolucci was like, we were sitting there eating bread or whatever, this little French cafe, and the butter was there on the table, and instantly we both knew what we had to do and shit. Like,
right. What? Yeah. It wasn't necessarily said, which I'm skeptical of everyone's version of it, you know, because they do conflict. We might as well touch on that now. I mean, since
Maria Schneider said she felt raped by the butter scene, which is basically a scene where she comes in and he orders her to get this butter out of the fridge. Let me say real quick, the time lapse, how much time lapsed in it confused me for a while. It felt like it could have been weeks, months this thing was going on. But then once you see the wife's dead body, you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah, it seems like
it has to be like a day or two old or something. Yeah, you know what I mean?
There were a couple points in the dialogue where I was like, oh, that was just yesterday?
Right, and then near the very end, she says, remember I was here a couple of days ago to see about this apartment. So all this shit happens over like 3 days.
Excuse me. Yeah, exactly.
Which kind of fucked my mind up.
Yeah, me too. I got the feeling that the way they behaved together, that it was more drawn out and stuff, but maybe that's just interesting.
And that she was finding opportunities to sneak off from her fiance to go over there and shit. But so maybe that was a bit messy on the part of Bertolucci, but
yeah, which is fine. I mean, it's not a major problem really, but
nah.
But you were beginning to describe the butter scene. That
so
back to the apartment. He,
she would come over, and often it would just be these weird ways they would get into getting down and shit. And this one, he orders
like one time she comes in, just to set the stage on that. One time she comes in and there's just this mattress laying on the floor, and he's just leaning against like the mantle or whatever, and he just kicks one shoe off and then kicks the other one and catches it and shit. More of his acrobatics and shit. I was like, that was pretty impressive too. But go ahead.
He's fucking awesome. But so this one time she comes in and he's like, there's some butter in the fucking fridge, get it, because he's always ordering her around. And she does. She gets this butter, and then they start talking about there's this little hollow space in the floor and a little hidey hole cut into the floor, which was great metaphorically, because he was talking about it's a hiding place. And it's like that whole flat is a hiding place. That's what they're doing. They're hiding from the world, from reality, from their feelings, from pain, from, and which I can appreciate the fuck out of.
Oh, yes.
I mean, all the rapey shit aside, just to have this secret place and this secret tryst and shit, which, I mean, Amber, I don't know if you ever listen to this. I'll tell you right now, I'll never run around just because I couldn't imagine sneaking around and dealing with the stress and all that. But, because I love you. But I think every human being, if we're honest, could imagine having a secret thing that's their own appeal. And really what the appeal is that it's free of all the mundane life bullshit.
Well, we covered another movie similar in that regard, same time next year with June.
Yes, exactly. It's like it's really what people want is just to not deal with domestic bullshit. You know,
right?
That's what it is.
You know, they were, you know, they started off with these rules. We're not going to know each other's names and stuff. They just wanted to discard. Like, there's no world outside this place as much as they could create this. Just this ivory tower kind of thing.
Well, and it's his creation because she at first was trying to find his name and shit.
Right, which makes sense. I mean,
right.
You know, but
well, back to the butter.
Yeah.
So he calls her in this time, and eventually he just throws her down, rolls her over, tears her pants down, and grabs a handful of butter and like lubes her ass up with it, and basically gets on top of her and ass rapes her. The rape thing, it's so questionable. It's like she, as an actress, Maria Schneider said she felt raped by the scene. And those tears were real because they never told her that this was going to happen or anything, which is fucked up, completely fucked up. As a filmmaker, I couldn't imagine playing those kind of reindeer games on some actress at 20 years old. She was 19 when they filmed it, actually, which is fucking crazy.
Yeah, there was like a movement at the time where like The Shining with Shelley Duvall is another example of like people, and it's not just, you know, guys with women too, like it got, you know, males would do it with other male actors and try and create this beef between each other and stuff to make the, you know, acting legitimate. You know, but this was just something that people did a lot then. And I agree. I don't think it's really necessary. I mean, that's what acting's supposed to be, right? You're supposed to be able to like recreate that, you know, as an actor and not have to.
And into like the 80s, Adrian Lyne famously telling Mickey Rourke to treat Kim Basinger like shit, even off set.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. It was usually toward women. I don't mean to diminish that, but I'm just saying it did happen across the board to some degree, you know, too.
We even had an idea about it called Onion, kind of a found footage movie of this filmmaker who gets cancer and he's documenting it the whole time. And it's basically him and his lover. She's a wannabe actress. She's a wannabe filmmaker going through this whole process of him fucking losing weight, losing his hair, being sick as fuck, dying essentially in front of her, and how it emotionally impacts her until he reveals at the end he's been faking it the whole time just to conjure like the great performance from her, you know? It essentially speaks to that form of filmmaking, which
two characters doing that thing that we're talking about that happened.
Not that we would do that with our actors,
but we're exploring that.
Comment on that, right?
Yes,
and yet in the scenes, and let's acknowledge people talk about Bernie Sanders and his fucking paper on rape fantasies and shit back in the day. This shit does exist. Some people have fucking weird kinks and shit.
Yeah. Some women have
call it
fantasies, of course.
Stockholm syndrome, but I think that's oversimplifying it, that the women never want it or whatever. Some women are fucked in the head and they're self-destructive and they want that shit.
Yeah.
Call it toxic or not, but they're both getting off on it. She stuck around. She kept coming back after that scene. She could have easily, you know.
She commented that first off, she says the scene wasn't in the script. I think was right, at least to not necessarily to quote, but close, you know, that the scene wasn't in the script, and she didn't know at the time because she was so naive that she could go to her agent and say it wasn't in the script, I don't have to do it. But the director said the butter was the only novelty, that the you know, rape was in the script, that the sex scene itself was in the script, but the butter was the one novelty. That's what his claim. So there's even like her phrasing. I don't know from her phrasing if that's what she meant, was that the entire scene was not in there, or just this one variation, you know. So that is not being kind of hinging point
still. Actors should know exactly what the fuck is going to happen in the scene to her, especially to her body, sexually, etc.
Right.
I mean, if you blow off a smoke grenade or whatever, maybe you don't have to fucking warn her, but something of this nature, of course, you know.
Yes.
So,
but what's interesting about that to me is, if that's true, that she was aware of the scene and the butter was the only novelty, was the butter really the thing that made it more? I mean, the rape itself seems to be the thing that, you know, it should be
the fact that he rubbed butter in her asshole and shit or whatever. It's probably,
I see how it's demeaning for sure. Yeah,
he didn't have to touch her to simulate ass raping her. but to put the butter in there.
That's true. Like actually physically doing it. Yeah, that's
kinda,
fucking
you know
awful.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, here's one of the facts I read.
But I mean,
Brando,
just as a concept, like abstractly, it's interesting that it could just be the addition of this one detail, and that like turned it on its head.
Hey man, full disclosure, don't fuck around with people, especially 19-year-old girls and shit with this towering fucking iconic actor she's acting opposite and shit. Just think of the position she's in. It's so fucked.
Yep.
Bertolucci's nuts. But that's how some of these fucking artistes were and shit, for better or worse. I mean, for worse, obviously, but some great shit came out of it. But you could have easily made the scene, having warned her, she might have been in on it. She might have been
exactly.
I'm a
that's
brave
all.
actress, I'll do it,
Yeah, just springing it on her, may have been the one problem. That she might have been into the
but of course
board,
he does it. He justifies he does it because if he sprang it on her, he'd never get the performance, he'd never get the real tears, and that's what he was after.
But
so hey man, maybe some directors are willing to say I'm a fucking monster to make great art.
That's true.
I don't know.
Maybe he's willing to live with that,
One of the facts was Brando himself said he felt raped by the movie, and he never spoke to Bertolucci again. Though he says he's one of the top 3 directors he ever worked with. So it's all complicated as fuck. That's the thing.
Well, it's sort of like the Polanski thing, like what he did was obviously a criminal.
Well,
you know what I mean?
It had nothing to do with movie making too. I don't know if Polanski's rape of that girl or whatever.
No. I know that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying when it comes to separating the artist and the art and that kind of stuff, like, I could see certain, like say Polanski probably should pay or definitely should pay a price for what he did, what it is, how many years, all that stuff is, somewhat like that's all arguable, but the films themselves should just stand. Absolutely. The work of art, like yes, you can have the same idea at the same, or the two ideas in your head at the same time, that the person's a criminal and should be punished for it, but yet the work they did is still great.
Right. It's all complicated. I mean, say there's a painting of Anne Boleyn before she got beheaded, but she was in the tower under order to be beheaded, but an artist was sent in there to make a painting of her. Is he complicit in her beheading and shit? You know what I mean? It's just the point being, does it diminish the painting that she was going to be beheaded the next day?
Hitler was an artist and supposedly considered not necessarily bad, but mediocre. I've seen it. It's like better than I can do for sure. But it's let's just imagine though he was great. Let's say he did Rembrandt level art. You could still say the painting is fucking badass and amazing if it was made by a monster,
And for all you know, Rembrandt fucked little boys and shit. Like, the
That's
other
true
thing
too.
is you just never know what people are up to secretly and shit.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So the separating the art from the artist, we're both hardcore on record. That's a must do. But again, we've spoken about people who are like, I won't let my kid hear Michael Jackson because of allegations and shit, but to me that's absurd, man. Just explain to your kid sometimes the best art is made by fucking monsters. Sometimes it takes a monster to make the great art, unfortunately.
Especially in cases where it's not ironclad, like Woody Allen or even Michael Jackson. There hasn't been like a smoking gun in those cases. They're still argued. There are people who, on both sides, of course, there's.
And those documentaries you see are, of course, biased and shit.
Yes. But I'm just saying, like, to come down with that absolute a position, on it when you can't be sure,
exactly.
That is definitely a factor too.
I had a few. I don't know how we want to approach this as far as just talking about the movie itself, scenes, great scenes.
One more thing on the butter scene, because I had some notes here in this thing. Schneider thought Bertolucci was in love with Brando, and that her character should have been a boy in the director's mind.
Well, that's part of my facts.
The sodomy
trivia
fixation.
here.
Okay.
It initially was a homosexual thing, but the French actor he had first cast didn't want to do all this shit. And he had problems doing it. But it's complicated and weird because Bertolucci is on record as saying Brando was for him, and this is, personal filmmaking is a style of filmmaking. Like you think of the films of Maya Deren and, earlier on, it was a movement of personal filmmaking, truly auteur artist shit, where when they make a movie, it's about them. You could argue that Sam Levinson, Malcolm and Marie shit was personal filmmaking about his own issues with his wife and, being a filmmaker, etc. So there's a tradition of that. And Bertolucci said that Brando was the stand-in for Bertolucci's own manhood, and Maria Schneider was a stand-in for, I'd have to read exactly what it was, but not womanhood itself, but this fantasy he had of seeing a woman on the street and just wanting to fuck her and just being complete strangers and never, which I think is a pretty common fantasy for honest everyone is fucking male or female has probably had this fantasy.
Sure.
Yeah, here you go. While filming, director Bernardo Bertolucci tried to explain the point of the film to Marlon Brando, which is hilarious because Brando's like, what the fuck are we doing exactly here?
Right.
What's the point of this shit? Suggesting that his character was Bertolucci's manhood and that Maria Schneider's character was his dream girl. Brando later maintained that he had absolutely no idea what Bertolucci was suggesting or even talking about. But the point is, it started gay. It started as a homosexual thing. You couldn't get made.
So it was.
So is your dream girl a dude?
Interesting.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Mean, there's layers to that.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Right. Speaking of gay, Maria Schneider herself, I saw a thing and she said, not that this has any fucking relevance to anything because who cares, but it was in the trivia thing that she had slept with like 50 men and 70 women. Like
that Schneider had?
Yeah.
You're saying? Before the filming of the movie?
I don't know about that. The quote didn't say what age she said
impressive.
that or something, but it could
I
be,
wouldn't judge at all. I wouldn't judge.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It has no bearing. Who gives a fuck?
Exactly.
It's all
but it's an interesting,
Who cares,
it's an interesting
dude?
Tidbit.
But that is something about the French culture too, where the mistress is commonplace. It's almost a feature of the culture, you know? And I wonder if that's healthier.
Probably is as much.
I
mean,
if everyone's grown up about it and you accept it as a feature,
and the relationship doesn't get destroyed by it and everything. If each person could have one affair, like people would give their significant other, their hall pass celebrity or whatever. But if you had a version of that was everyone can have just one other, person that's just, people would be so threatened by that. No one would go for that. Well, I won't say no one. There's all kinds out there, but it would be super rare. The normal person is way too jealous and insecure for that. What?
I just thought, my wife is so farm girl vanilla and shit that we would never get into hall pass type shit, which is fine. Again, I don't even need to open Pandora's boxes and shit, but I just wonder what hers would be.
Interesting. I would love to know that. We gotta
I know when I first met her, we were young. She was like 21 in college, whatever, and was like into that Josh Hartnett dude. Fucking sucks. Yeah, I can't even know. Colin Farrell when he was first coming up.
A lot of like Keanu Reeves, Johnny Depp. You hear a lot that kind of.
I wonder how many people have some weird kink that their significant other would be amazed to find out their hall pass is like some 500-pound woman or some shit,
Oh, shit.
Some shit like some old ass lady you'd never fucking expect. Who's your hall pass? Fucking Ellen Burstyn and shit.
Yes.
Yeah, circa 1974. No, now.
Right?
Bitch.
Yeah.
I like them brittle.
The
movie. It's pretty amazing. I wish they made more movies. I wish we could start another movement of making movies like this without doing rapey shit, obviously, during the production.
Yeah. Right.
But just honest movies about deviance, man. That's why I love Todd Solondz shit. But it's like his shit is deviant filmmaking. I wish deviant shit was commonplace in filmmaking.
That's definitely more compelling,
Definitely. All this good guys got to get the thing and stop the bomb and get the object to save the world shit. Get over it. What if we made a superhero struggling with his sexuality and shit? Just get interesting with it. That's real character work. None of these movies have any fucking real character work or depth to them.
Could be so much more
Scorsese
compelling.
means with the cinema shit, I think. That they're just not digging deep.
Yes, they're not exploring these provocative subjects and stuff, right?
Which is fine. Like you said, roller coasters, theme parks,
you have to. It's good. All options are out there. If you want to just go for some mindless entertainment with your family or whatever, that's there too. That's great.
But why can't it ever cross over?
I know exactly. Well, it kind of does, but not like Marvel doesn't do it, but The Boys and shit, right? Like, so it does get, even though it's still a bit more fun than you know,
Right.
take it seriously or anything, but it'll probably come along. No heroes, man. This movie, though, as controversial as it was, and how, you know, widespread the, you know, rejection and disgust with it and everything, it got a lot of praise. Like Ebert called Pauline Kael's essay on it the most famous movie review ever published.
Yeah, but he lamented the fact that what she said didn't turn out to be true. She thought it was a turning point in cinema. She thought it was going to change cinema forever and start this new wave of movies like it that just don't give a fuck and push the envelope and really dig deep into humanity and the human psyche and emotion and psychosexual shit. And it never really materialized. A couple years later, Jaws and shit comes along, and, you know,
becomes more like
Hollywood and, you know,
whole type thing.
And Ebert lamented that. Like, he wanted it to be more interesting, you know, obviously.
Definitely. Robert Altman said, "How dare I make another film after seeing this?" Like, he just can't, you know, approach something like this.
Even the language of it. It was one of the first movies to use the word cunt, which is a word he actually uses when he berates his wife, but he says it several times in several different contexts. But Carnal Knowledge, do you remember that movie? Mike Nichols with Jack Nicholson, Art Garfunkel, fucking what's her name, Candice Bergen, Murphy Brown when she was a young model and shit. That movie was the first movie on record to use the word cunt. It makes me want to make it a pick someday.
Yeah.
Just to make it in honor of the word cunt being used in movies.
Hell yes. It's got a great cast. I'll watch that shit.
Okay, dude. I mean, great cast, great filmmaker. Again, part of that time when shit was just going down like that. When you talk about the movie being so derided and shit, get some of this. Let me find a couple of these little tidbits, man. Fucking nuts.
And we should discuss the ending too.
Yeah, definitely. After the film's release in Europe, director Bernardo Bertolucci, producer Alberto Grimaldi, Marlon Brando, and Maria Schneider were all indicted by a court in Bologna, Italy, for making the film under the term utilitarian pornography. They were all acquitted of the charge shortly thereafter, with Bertolucci losing his civil rights, including his right to vote for 5 years.
Yeah, I did see he lost his civil rights and the right to vote. Yeah, I saw that. I didn't realize that was
movie. What the fuck?
Charge.
The film was banned in Chile for nearly 30 years. It was also banned in its country of origin, Italy, until 1987.
It's crazy. It's not that, I mean,
compared
to like the kind of hardcore porn and shit there's out there, like twisted, crazy shit. Like this, there wasn't even like real sex in it and shit. But I mean, that's also debated, but they say it was all simulated. You know,
the film was banned in Spain, the entire country. So the town of Perpignan on the French-Spanish border was besieged with visitors crossing the border to see it.
Oh shit!
You know, you made a movie when motherfuckers are like crossing the border to see it and shit.
It probably only made it more desirable to see.
Yeah, I was almost going to say it's
good at marketing.
That limitations, that obstruction shit. Almost art needs these things. Art almost needs these fucking uptight assholes.
Yeah, true.
For it to have power.
How can it be provocative if it doesn't provoke anyone? Right.
Right.
So would you go?
Ingmar Bergman, Ingmar Bergman, the famous Swedish filmmaker.
Yeah.
He said this film only made sense if it were about two homosexuals. And director Bernardo Bertolucci responded that he accepted all criticisms of his film as valid, which I think is a dope position as a filmmaker to take.
Sure.
All criticisms are valid. Fuck it.
Yeah.
That's your reaction.
Part of the point too. Yeah. Yeah. There was a point too where Paul, was it? Brando's character asked Jean to, Jean or whatever, but in French, it's pronounced that way, to digitally penetrate his ass. There was a point in that too.
That was one of the orders things again.
And that was before the butter scene.
The nail
it was like escalation. Yes.
Clip your fucking nails. Actually, it was after the butter scene, I think.
Was it? Oh, yes. I thought it was before. I got that mixed up.
No, it was after. I just finished watching it this morning.
Okay. Yeah, I watched it like a week ago. I was just...
Yeah, which really made me think about the butter scene, though.
Yeah.
That it was like his fantasy to be fucked in the ass, so he's fucking her in the ass. And then later in the movie, he says something about he caught a nail in Cuba, and he had a prostate the size of a fucking grapefruit or some shit, whatever he said. And he couldn't make kids anymore or some shit. It was during the tango scene where that was one of the cool things about it, that they have this secret life and they can't divulge names or backgrounds or anything. Yet once it moves from the flat and he finds her outside of the flat and he chases her and they go to this dance hall where this whole tango is going down and shit. And they start just telling each other everything, which is cool.
Yes.
But they start, really laying it down. He's like, I love you. Fuck it. I want to run. Let's live together and shit, But by then it was too late. And for her, it was just this secret, weird, sexual, rapey tryst and shit that she was into.
Yeah, it's interesting that scene did take place after the butter rape scene because, that at least her character was still on board, obviously with, this kind of kink and shit or whatever, you know what I mean? And the stuff he was saying when, he had her anally finger him or whatever. Like how he's going to make her fuck a pig. I don't remember all. Again, it's a little foggier in my mind. It was a while ago, but yeah. But anyway, the shit with the that you were just describing, where he's lays it all out and really tells her who he is and says he loves her and all that, which now, like you said, is too late for that, or maybe never was in the cards. Major spoiler alert, but she shoots him when she tells him her name. And it seems to me that she also just didn't want.
She wanted secrets.
She didn't want it to, like, once she knew who he was and all that. Now, shooting is a little drastic. Like, I didn't expect that. I was like, whoa, what?
I kind of wondered if it was coming because they set the gun up and everything earlier.
Yes, it's like is it a Hitchcock quote? He said, if you put a gun over the mantle, it has better be fired by the second act or something like that. Of course, that's
just that exactly. He put on her dad's soldier's cap. And so there's some father shit going on there. With her killing your dad.
Yes.
Sort of.
Yeah, I read up on it later just to see what people said about it. And I said, that's a good point. Him wearing the hat might have triggered her, so to speak, But,
and just that he followed her. She said, fucking leave me alone, leave me alone. And he chased her down. And
he was getting, he's just not going to go away. Sure. Yeah.
And she ends up
I felt like there could have been, an opportunity to drive him away, rather than just outright killing him. You know what I'm saying? Like,
of course. But I think, I think he, though, kind of. Let's talk about the whole death scene for a second. There's a few things about it that are interesting and amazing. And it was a great end to the film, I thought.
Yes, totally was.
One thing is she starts rehearsing her story, essentially. He raped me. He tried to rape me. He followed me. So I don't know his name, all this. And it sounds like some weird creep on the street. She could pass a lie detector test.
Totally.
It's all true. She never knew his name. He was this fucking creep who tried to rape her. He did follow her, But
it also seemed like
would never know that she knew this dude and was fucking him for days and shit in this apartment she kept returning to.
Yeah. It also seemed like a way for her to cope with having just killed him to minimize it all. And like, I don't even,
because I think she did love him, but it's that normative life versus the secret deviant shit again, that she's got this young fiance who's her age, who her mom, everyone knows about, she's getting married to, this filmmaker douchebag.
Yeah.
Brando was way more compelling than that fucking guy. Another thing about the death scene is I love just his physicality, the way he stepped out onto the balcony and everything.
Yes, the death scene itself when he actually
when he sticks his gun, he takes his gum out and sticks it under the railing of the apartment. And it just made me wonder, is there a piece? There's got to be one piece of gum somewhere in the world that someone stuck under something right as they were about to die.
Yeah,
right?
No shit. Yeah, it is I loved it how it's like this leaving a mark kind of thing, but it's a piece of gum, which is so just like pedestrian and a little gross,
but
or whatever.
At the same time, out of his mouth. Oral,
yes, very up, right, exactly. It's symbolic in many ways. Yeah,
I bet Bertolucci. When there's shit in Cactus Jack that people will probably never key in on, but we see how it syncs up with the dialogue, with the image, with the there's this artistic
a word landing on an image
that sometimes it's happenstance, but often you even start to uncover the fossil yourself and see, oh man, it's funny how I made this happen, and it has all this context to it. The gum is kind of like that. Like, she is this chewed up remnant of this relationship. She remains there. And another thing is the last. It does a POV shot of him of like the rooftops of Paris, but it's just this antenna rooftop kind of shot.
It's not
a
like this
picturesque
beautiful,
Paris, you know?
somewhat, but no, exactly.
But it still made me think, better to die anywhere than a hospital.
No shit.
For your
That's a better last view than
for your
right?
last thing you see to be
Fucking
something just of the
IP
world,
drip bag.
out in the world,
The
and shit.
ceiling. Yeah.
I don't want to die indoors. I don't think, unless it's like a cathedral or something,
Window in your face.
you know, interesting or something.
And one more thing about the gum that's interesting too is that, you know, when, you know, she and the husband start this new life and shit, there will always be this like probably unnoticed remnant, you know, of him there, you know.
Yeah, I wonder if she would find it, or if she.
I was wondering that too. Like at some point, like a year later or something, he notices this piece of gum, and like, you know, not that he'd suspect anything, but I'm just like, you know.
Well, that was her mom's apartment that she was going to be moving out of to move into an apartment with the dude.
I thought it was going to be where they're moving in. Oh, my bad. Okay.
Because the mom's talking about, I hate the country.
Oh yeah, with the gun there and the hat and shit. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
But man, I'm glad as fuck I watched it. I might watch it again someday. Just I can't wait till my fucking son, who's 7, is old enough to watch shit like this and have an actual conversation about it. I don't know if he'll be in college. I watched this shit in high school with him. So
when he does get to that age, it's going to be crazy. All the kind of shit you can watch together and discuss, like, do this again with him. You know, keep Rated Q going to the point that it's into this kind of material eventually.
That'd be amazing. We got to kick it back off with a never-ending story.
Yes, good one.
Anyway, speaking of fantastical fucking weird stories, should we jump into ZARDOZ a bit?
I think I've said
go back and forth
all I need
a bit.
to say about it. Yeah, sure.
Last Tango in Paris, I'd suggest, though, see the shit if you haven't. Appreciate it for what it is. Separate the art from the artist. It's interesting. It's compelling. It's amazing. We could still talk about it probably for 2 more hours as far as what his character motivations were, beyond the obvious of like handling the pain of his wife's suicide and shit. I mean, there had to be sexual shit going on that predated him ever meeting his wife.
Yes, all the baggage. Yeah.
Like, I don't think because his wife died that he wanted to be fingered in his asshole and shit, you know?
Right. That one more thing, the opening shot was great too, where he's just like, I forget exactly what he said, but motherfucking God. It was the sound of the train right over top of him.
Right over him.
Just that was the band right in, smash into that.
He's kind of reeling from it, like, fuck.
Yes. Right. It was a great way to just kick it off.
Man, I'll tell you.
His death was peaceful.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like everyone should have their secrets. I'm all about transparency and government, et cetera, and maybe even emotional transparency. If we all had that and everyone was a fucking grown up about everything, it wasn't so judgmental with their expectations and shit, you could actually have it. But since that'll never be the case, we should all have their. I was telling my kid the other day, like, everyone has a secret life that, fuck you don't get access to. It's theirs. You know what I mean? Whatever their fantasies are and shit, they don't owe you anything. And, you know, this goes out to all the people, women who catch their husband looking at porn and all that kind of shit. Fuck off. Let people have their secret little fucking things they do that's theirs, you know?
Yeah, people need to evaluate if they're really being hurt or damaged by something, you know?
Right. Even like if my wife had some work husband or some shit and they have some fucking like Sal and Stern.
Emotional friend,
his wife had the emotional friend. It's kind of like, if they can have, she can have it and she gets something from it that makes the marriage better.
Exactly.
It's a pressure valve.
It's
that
like, why be
relieves this
threatened?
Pressure and shit, you know? But the problem is everyone's always looking for greener pastures, and like, she probably considers it escalate. You know what I mean? And if she is, then it's a problem. But I don't know. Everyone just needs to shut the fuck up with their expectations and stop.
That's really it.
You know,
just take care of yourself. Don't put expectations on other people. At least not
life's
overbearing.
So short and stupid, and we're so forced to do all these things we don't want to do all the time. You should definitely have this just solace and this refuge and this little island in your mind where you get to do whatever the fuck you want, and even outside of your mind to a degree. You know.
Yeah. You fucking dudes with their toy train sets or whatever, you know, whatever fucking floats their boat.
Or even, again, emotional friends and shit or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
Like, if I found out that shit, my wife was doing something like that, the only reason I'd be annoyed would be the hypocrisy of it, because I know she'd go nuclear if I was.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, I'd try and handle it like a fucking grown up.
Yeah.
And understand why she's doing it, what she's not getting from me that she gets from this dude or whatever, you know?
Sure.
For us to act like we are all encompassing and should be somebody's everything is fucking absurd.
Yeah.
Well, which brings something back to this movie before we get into ZARDOZ.
Sure.
Where the guy down the hall, we didn't even touch on that. That was some interesting shit. There's this dude. So Marlon Brando lives in this hotel that his wife's family owned or whatever. I got the impression. His wife was having an affair with this dude down the hall.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Brando knew about it.
Right.
He didn't give a fuck. And maybe it's that French culture thing, but to the point where there's a scene where he goes to the dude's apartment and confronts him and talks to him, and they both have the same bathrobe on, and, which is awesome because she wanted him. She made the what would you call it? The mister. What is that?
I don't even know. Good point.
Yeah, dudes fuck around way more than women, I guess.
Right.
It's more accepted, you know. Her paramour or whatever you would call it, where she insisted he get the same robe that Brando wore, and he doesn't like bourbon, but she made him keep a bottle of bourbon that Brando drinks and shit. So there was something to me that spoke thematically that there's pieces of her husband she loves, but there's things he's missing that this other guy might have or whatever. If she had her druthers, she'd be able to combine them or something. Right. And that's what she was trying to do. And that to me is just grown up and honest. To act like this other person you marry or whatever is supposed to check every fucking box for you and not have any negatives you don't like. It's just fucking childish. Anyway, ZARDOZ. You got to describe it.
Yeah, I have to describe this motherfucker. All right. It's set a couple hundred years in the future after society's collapsed. This group of like elites have like isolated themselves as and gained immortality, call themselves the Eternals, and they through the use of this like godlike figure ZARDOZ, they brainwash these so-called exterminators to kill what they call the brutals outside this little utopia they carved out for themselves. And one of those exterminators, Zed, played by Sean Connery, wakes up, sort of gets red-pilled, and the Eternals take him in and study him, I guess, to figure out why he's different from the rest of the exterminators. And it becomes apparent later that he's being manipulated by the guy behind ZARDOZ to kill all of the Eternals because they've all just gotten kind of listless and bored with
decadent
immortality.
Shit.
Yeah. And most of them want to die. They kind of have a death wish now and they can't.
Well, and part of the way that he even came to them, not to break in, was that they thought he killed that guy. That's like the opening of the movie. He kills the great and powerful Oz, essentially.
Arthur or something.
Yeah. What the fuck
this guy, holy fuck.
Terrible.
Awful.
It's so hard to describe. And watching it continuously, I was just like, what in the fuck? Why?
I know.
I asked why so many times while watching it.
You mean why the film itself or why like specific moments?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I get what John Boorman was trying to do.
Yep.
John Boorman, who, by the way, made shit like Excalibur and Deliverance and shit. Like, so this was his first film, I think. Started off weird out the gate.
This was his first? Yeah. I didn't realize that. Oh, because
sure.
I did read that he was working on a Lord of the Rings adaptation and they canceled it because of the budget concerns. So he made this instead because he had become enamored with like the world building, like fantasy kind of aspect of Lord of the Rings. But it's crazy that
if that was his first, no, I don't know. But
I'm not sure either.
It was definitely predated those other more famous ones.
Interesting. And he himself said,
"Oh no, Deliverance was 72." All right, never mind. I stand corrected. So he made Deliverance,
which is hilarious too. You make Deliverance, and then
yes. What?
But he himself called the film laughable. So
yeah,
I guess he realized it is just fucking ridiculous. I mean,
it's
you
kind of
have to, right? I can't believe you don't think it's bonkers, you know? Yeah, totally. I'm glad it's out there for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad I saw it. It was another shameless.
It's awesome in a way, you know.
I actually own the Twilight Time DVD, which I bought and was like $30. Now I see it on eBay for like $200. Or the Blu-ray, yeah. So I'm glad I have it. I'm glad it's part of the collection so Q can watch it someday in case it gets scrubbed from the internet for some weird reason or some shit like a lot of these streamers do. We're gonna do a Basketball Diaries episode coming up soon. Fucking nowhere. You have to have a physical copy of Basketball Diaries, which made no sense to me until I rewatched it again. We'll get into that on that episode. Now I see why it's been scrubbed, but it's something I take exception to. But man, it's so janky. The acting, the fucking costumes, everything's just
totally.
But if you remade it, it wouldn't work because it's so stupid and
it
weird.
Relies on the jankiness. That's part of its charm, you know.
If you remade it with the same script but with impeccable production value and acting, it'd just be like, what in the Christ?
It would truly be why, right?
Yeah, it'd be a waste of fucking everything. But
David Vanilla View or whatever. Yeah, he's doing Dune and shit. Like, imagine.
I have a hard time. I mean, well, yeah, I'll say again. Then why I chose it was the gap of it all. I have a buddy, Dave Beckerman. What's up, dude? If you ever catch wind of this, maybe you'll watch this episode because it has Zardoz in it. Unfortunately, I don't know how much I have to say about the movie. Kind of want to talk to him about it one day. See why, like his Instagram name is like Zardoz Ramon or some shit.
Oh shit!
Like fucking into Zardoz, and I wonder if it's
Zardoz itself is awesome. Yeah, the fucking giant floating head, and you know the masks too.
Oh yeah, some of the imagery and everything. It is an cool acid trip of a movie.
Yes, so that opening scene was requested by the studio and put in later to help like set it up better, and it's my favorite moment in it probably. Where it just
floating
head and the guys with the guns on the horses and the guns coming out his mouth and all that shit.
It is amazing. It started pretty promising, actually.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm in. Let's strap in and see where this goes. And oh my god, but the Arthur, whatever, the fucking guy behind the what the fuck they call it, the man behind the curtain, you know, the Oz, the great powerful wizard type thing.
Well, Zardoz itself, spoiler alert, fucking is Wizard of Oz. If you cover up the W-I and of, it's Zardoz, which
I had like very early, like, man, I'm getting some Oz vibes with this, and it's right in the name Oz, so I kind of like latched onto that. But then when they actually brought it right to the surface, it was actually literally the Arthur dude, you know, presented it through some, you know, trickery or whatever. The Wizard of Oz book presented it to the Zed character, and then it was like, oh, Zardoz, Wizard of Oz. I mean, they just straight up, you know, did it. Like, I thought it was going to be more like allegory.
Flashback.
Yeah.
This is something a lot of amateur scripts we've seen do, and we used to do ourselves. There's this impulse as a storyteller to hold back what motivates people and make it some big reveal. But I've come to the conclusion it's horse shit. It's so much better in almost all cases, I'm not going to say always, but in almost all cases, to just put the cards on the table, let us know what's motivating the character, take that ride with them.
Well, the thing with this,
work great when it's like 6 cents or something, and I think he knows what's going on.
Did he? I feel like they might have had to pull it out of him. Like, maybe. I feel like he might have not remembered. I'm not positive on that, honestly.
Yeah, but it feels like even that was constructed to do that to the audience. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. It could have.
There's no reason to make him have had amnesia and shit or whatever, except to hold it back, really. You know?
Right.
And it just,
but you were describing why you picked it, and I derailed you.
Well,
you were talking about it back.
It's kind of just again the shameless thing of it all, and it just looks so wacky. I'd always seen Sean Connery running around in this fucking Flash Gordon looking red loincloth singlet with a pistol on a horse and shit.
This followed the Bond, you know, Connery playing James Bond, and he actually had trouble finding work. I read, which is he got.
Well, the last James Bond movie he was in was shitty too, and panned by everybody.
But this certainly took care of the typecasting problem. This sure as hell wasn't James Bond. But when he took the role, and like people went to the theater knowing him as Bond, they must have been floored seeing him and running around in this red loincloth and being sort of this barbarian like figure and shit.
Like fucking
James Bond being almost the opposite of that.
Well, that wouldn't surprise him, but
yeah, right. Just the manner in which he does it.
Connery's interesting to me. There's something about time stamping where even as a kid, everyone was like, he was the coolest Bond. And I'd watch it, I'm like, I don't know. He seems cool. Well, and how he was like Mr. Universe or Mr. Olympia. It just shows how times changed from it would used to be a guy like him to became Arnold and fucking steroids and shit,
right.
you know? And I just remember always thinking like, all right, he seems cool, but I don't know if like the character of James Bond seems cooler, almost like it was waiting for someone more suave, more, I don't know, to come on. And maybe this is sacrilegious to a lot of people, I'm sure, to say that. What I'm getting at is I feel like he's one of those dudes who aged like a fine wine. And Sean Connery got cooler as he got older to me. Old Sean Connery's the shit. The Rock, even a dumb shit like The Rock or something, or Entrapment, just dumb Hollywood shit. There's something about this virile old dude versus a virile young guy, you know? And the character Zed sucks. There's just nothing going on. The whole movie, like, I mean, these are kind of total contrasts in terms of character work. It's like all plot and theme and shit. Totally. Zardoz, whereas Tango's like all character and theme through character, you know? And
this was
all day, dude.
This was all about the world building and plot and shit, like you said, and themes. Like you get this idea that it's like commenting on religion and society a lot. Like, you know, even what I started this off with, the gun is good, the penis is evil, you know, the dude's killing and dying for a promised afterlife, you know, violence is entertainment, that kind of shit. So it was commenting on all those things. But again, in the end, if the characters aren't, you know, firing on all cylinders, you know, like the love interest stuff in this, it was just like, what was her name? Constance, whatever.
Charlotte Rampling.
Rampling, yeah, she's awesome. We just saw her recently in the sequel to Happiness. What was it? The Love in Wartime.
Oh yeah. She also aged like a fine wine. Charlotte Rampling's a bad bitch, dude.
She's awesome. Fucking eyes, man.
Yeah. And just so lean and
striking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She's kinda
she has this presence.
Leaf, you know.
But the fact like that it just like suddenly she at the end became like this love interest character that it didn't build to at all or anything, you know, and
totally unwarranted.
And like you said, if we had followed Zed through, if he was aware of, you know, his ultimate goal and everything, would be so much better to be on board with that and to like, you know, be championing that as the audience and stuff. But yeah, it was just
how
aimless.
He became an exterminator and shit. The choice he had to make to either be predator or prey on his planet. There's so much more interesting character shit it doesn't fuck with because it's trying to just do all this thematic commentary stuff, which
exactly
is deceptive coming from us. If you've seen our movie Cactus Jack, you might think it's all commentary, but really to us it was a character story all along. You know, Cactus Jack to me is a character piece, not at all commentary. You know, there's some of that in it, but it's through the character to me. You know, some people might say it's one note and one dimensional, but I would disagree. And I think they're watching it wrong and they're taking it as a political allegory or something. But I'm character all day, man. It's really
underneath the surface, there's a lot going on with this character. I mean, when you see the glimpses of Cactus Jack, I mean,
and even when it's redundant, it's like by design. It's like what happens when someone's brain gets hijacked and they become one note, and it's an addiction. Essentially, it's like, would you say this drug movie's just redundant because he just keeps doing drugs in it? It's like, no, that's what it's about. It's addiction. You know, he's addicted to hate and the dopamine rush he gets from it and shit. You know. Anyway, I love how we turn it always back to our shit, but I just don't know how much I have to say about Zardoz. Like,
I'll say a couple things that I dug about it, but they're very specific things that you know, have nothing to do with the movie as a whole, but just these like little spots that were cool. Like the idea that as immortals, if they committed crimes, their sentence was they were aged so many years. So
that's cool.
They were the senile renegades, you know, so like all the people who were the worst criminals were the old people because they'd been aged up as, you know, penalty for their crimes. But I thought it was also a missed opportunity because that could have been great, like this group of just like wicked fucking old people, because, you know, the older they are, the worse they are, you know what I mean?
And they're many of them former Eternals who
they
rejected
still were.
that utopian placid, just boring fucking.
They're still immortal, but yeah, they
Right.
maybe not considered part of that group, the Eternals. Yeah, exactly.
But they age, so their vanity is compromised. You know what I mean? They look
exactly.
like shit. They
Right.
feel like shit.
Yes,
but they're willing to trade that.
But they were Hellraisers, but they also like become less capable of being Hellraisers because they're bodies and shit.
Right, and that it was a good trade-off for them, though.
Yes,
they rejected.
That in and of itself is super interesting.
Right.
Like that may have been a more compelling character just following someone in that. Well, it reminded me too of where people will say, like, who wants to go to heaven? Hell sounds way more interesting. All the cool people will be down there. It's sort of like that. All the
very much like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Boorman had that in his mind as he was making it, and conceiving of it.
The touch teaching, which is a hilarious phrase, scene. The visuals in that were cool. Like when you consider the, there was no CGI and shit at the time, so they had it was almost like a avant-garde theatrical kind of thing where
they projected
they would project like musical notation on them while they're teaching song or whatever, or it'd be like just
I'd use that shit today in a sci-fi movie.
That's a
that was
really cool
effect, dude. We should try and make some sci-fi movie with all practical effects, dude.
Yes,
that would be cool. Some Plan 9 shit. Let's do a remake of Plan 9. That's public domain, right? Let's remake it.
I believe so.
But no CGI. Fuck CGI. If they remade ZARDOZ, it'd have CGI and it would suck.
Yes, right.
The imagery was cool. That ZARDOZ effigy, that head.
Yes, that was like terrifying. Yeah.
How the executioners ride around on horses wearing helmets of that, where the face is on both the front and the back. Like it's always cool watching. You can't sneak up on them. It's omnipresent.
Yeah,
shit was cool.
But man, like
so
the Arthur whatever dude, and then all the like at the end when they were all getting killed off, all the Eternals. Oh my god, like it was so hammy.
Well, let me say something about the acting in defense of the actors. Have you heard of the traveling people in Ireland and shit? The Travelers. Tyson Fury, heavyweight champ of the world, amazing fucking figure. You should look into him. He's just interesting. He ballooned up to 400 pounds, and he's named after Mike Tyson. So his dad raised him to be a fucking fighter from a kid. He grew to be a 6'9". So he's a 6'9", lanky, weird UK boxer who won everything, had never lost a fight, and just said fuck everything and ballooned up to 400 pounds and was snorting lines off stripper asses and shit. And he just went ham for 3 years and then said, fuck it, I'm going to go get my belts back. And then lost 200 pounds or whatever, got all in shape, whatever. He's back to being the best. But I think he's from the traveling people. They're the gypsies of the UK. And Boorman cast most of these people from the traveling people.
Interesting.
So most of these actors are fucking gypsies, non-actors, which explains why they suck, but
right.
They suck.
Well, a lot of it was the directing too, I think. You know what I mean? He probably steered it in this direction that, was just way over the top.
He had vision for days. And I feel like back in the day, there was that period in the 70s where vision was enough. You know what I mean? If you had enough vision, you could be a visionary filmmaker.
And
but your
that's
shit
not
would be janky. That's
not a knock against him either, because Deliverance is great and doesn't do anything like that, but it's just that I think his vision, of a lot of people's vision of something that's fantastical is often a little off the rails to me. You know what I mean? The sensibilities and stuff, they just don't know what to do with it.
Fantasy and even sci-fi, but fantastical sci-fi, it's a very specific thing, and it's very hard to hit that tuning fork just right,
gotten wrong. Exactly. Yep.
Especially for cats like us, because we grew up into that kind of comic book sci-fi. Shit, one of the first movies I ever saw in a theater, Mom took me to see Flash Gordon.
This made me think of that a bit.
This is the grown-up version of it with sex and fucking drugs and shit, which is cool, but again, it just it felt like rudderless, like a ship in a storm versus a ship that this guy was charting by constellations.
It did kind of hold my interest the whole way through, though. It didn't. you know.
Again, some of this is to its credit.
Yeah.
Like we've said before, I'll take a janky ass auteur flick over some fucking polished piece, you know, studio for hire type fucking movie. Like everything seems to be nowadays. All the studio shit's just trash. Indie or die these days, basically, man. And not again, theme parks, but
yeah,
I'd rather, I guess, go to a fucking titty bar or a shooting gallery than a fucking theme park these days. I don't know. Or a museum.
You're alone, right?
Yeah. Is it cool if I start filming now?
No, what are we getting inside? Why are you here?
I just thought it was really interesting, you know, that someone hasn't left their basement in 6 months, not even to use the bathroom. Is that true?
Why would I want to go out there? I got everything I need right here. That's what's wrong with most people. They're weak-willed pussies and parasites who buy into that whole it takes a village bullshit. You know how many aliases I've used calling into radio shows?
I've had it up to my goddamn gills with the systematic feminization of this country.
Of course we want to. Did your own damn show if you think you got that much to say.
You live in your mom's basement.
Get down! Fuck you! What's so special about my loser son?
You really do hate your own mother.
She's a woman. Why wouldn't I?
You know, there's some disconnect there, and if I could find it, what is hate? Where does it come from? Where does it go?
You want to know what gender you are? Reach down the front of your fucking pants and shoot fucking kite. Black Lives Matter. Do you call horses slaves? Liberal fucktard. Enough with the parades and the rainbow flags.
Dude, this guy's... it's like pure hate, man.
Want to see something really fucking cool?
This guy is a fucking animal. He's got himself on a leash. He's itching to get off that fucking leash. And he's gonna fucking kill some people.
What a fucking show.
Stop!
What do we hear?
Look at me! Look at me!
We're gonna help you show them the light. We're gonna change the world. This is Cactus Jack coming to you live from a studio audience.
To the man who calls himself Cactus Jack, we have watched as you have rocketed to infamy.
And you wonder why these cornered animals lash out. Hit the fucking side.
And now, we have watched as you have called for literal blood.
I know you're out there listening. It's buzzing in your ears, burrowing into your brain. Do it.
Jack, you're gonna love this. I pulled that trigger on that motherfucker's head.
Your VPN will not shield you. The darknet will not hide you. You and your kind are finished.
You think I'm scared of you?
Come and fucking get me!
Might I be your neighbor? Neighbor?